So the other day I was looking through some of our videos and I realised that in a large amount of them I referenced Tartaglia. Now, while he is certainly a very interesting and unique character within the game, and therefore has a lot to talk about, I probably mention him so much due to him being on my party. But regardless, Tartaglia's backstory is one of the deepest in the game so far, and as a person who mains him and has spent many hours searching through his wiki pages, I feel like I'm qualified to discuss his story. But of course, I'll always miss something or make a mistake, so let me know what I've made a mistake on in the comments. But now, let's get into it. So the best place to start, I think, would be with his name, or rather names, since he has so many of them. He's most commonly referred to as Tartaglia, which comes from the Commedia dell'arte, where all the Harbingers' names come from. Think of the Commedia dell'arte as a cookie-cutter play, which has common character tropes which the actors can play as. This is an oversimplification, but we don't have time to go into the details in this video. If you want to know a bit more, then I do highly recommend reading the Wikipedia article on it. But back to Genshin, each Harbinger is named after one of these character tropes, and Tartaglia's character is Italian for the stutterer. The character is often one of the lovers in the play, and while his profession does change between the different plays, they're all quite well-paid jobs such as a lawyer. These reflect Tartaglia in the game, a good-looking and very wealthy young man. His next most used name is Childe, and this is because of the Chinese translation of the game. Other languages needed an alias for him, and the Chinese name was used. It roughly means nobleman or young lord. Lastly, we get his real name, which you never actually hear in the story. Few people know that his real name is Ajax, which comes from a great warrior in Greek mythology. So all of his names suit him very well. A rich, good-looking young lord who's also a mighty warrior. So next, let's go to his chronological beginning, his childhood. So Tartaglia is from the region of Snezhnaya, which isn't yet in the game, and therefore we don't know a whole lot about it. However, we do know the town in which he was raised, Morpusok. We also know that he has 3 younger siblings, Tusa, Tonia and Anton, and has at least 3 older siblings, 2 brothers and at least 1 sister, yet we don't know any of their names. We know from descriptions of Tartaglia's childhood that the town he grew up in is by the sea, and fishing appears to be the main industry there. It also seems to be very small and relatively unimportant within the region as a whole. As a child, Tartaglia enjoyed ice fishing, and he often went out onto the ice with his father to catch fish. We can see this hobby has continued into adulthood, as in his story quest his brother Tusa says that he's caught massive fish before. We can also see in Tartaglia's story texts that he now uses the time spent waiting during fishing to meditate and reflect on battle strategies. In fact, his love for fishing goes as far as being his constellation, Monoceros Saili, which literally means celestial narwhal, which he also summons during his boss fight. So with this, it seems fairly clear that fishing was a key part of his childhood and has continued into his adulthood. So how did he get from a young boy who enjoys fishing into a bloodthirsty warrior? Well, this all started when he was 14, and fed up with his life in Morpusok, he ran away into the woods with nothing but a short sword and a bag of bread. Predictably, he got lost, and he happened to lose his footing and fall into a bottomless crack into the abyss. This is where he turned into the skilled battler that he's now known for. In the abyss, he met a swordswoman known as Skirk, and she taught him how to survive in the abyss. Tartaglia credits her as his master, and she's responsible for all his battle prowess. In fact, Tartaglia's foul legacy was borrowed from Skirk, and many of his hydro attacks appear similar to those of the Abyss Herald. Despite being one of the most powerful people in one of the most powerful groups, the Fatui Harbingers, Tartaglia has stated that Skirk could easily defeat him with only a single hand. After 3 months of training in the Abyss, Tartaglia returned to the mortal world, yet when his mother and sisters found him, only 3 days had passed in the real world. Once he had left the Abyss, Ajax was now well trained in combat and had a desire for battle. His boisterous nature and troublesome tongue brought much unwanted conflict into Morbozok, and appeared to follow him wherever he went. Tired of the constant trouble, Ajax's father handed him over to the Fatui. He'd thought that the strict training of the Fatui would straighten his son out, but the plan backfired massively. Tartaglia easily took on large amounts of full-grown and well-trained adult Fatui, and his passion for battle was heightened even further. Eventually, the 5th Harbinger Pulcinella caught word of Tartaglia's feats and gained an interest. Pulcinella officially inducted Ajax into the Fatui under the disguise of Ajax needing to serve out punishment for the damage that he had dealt. Tartaglia was thrilled to have this opportunity, and starting from the bottom, he worked his way up the ranks very quickly. His battle prowess and ego grew with each fight, and eventually he managed to rise to the rank of Harbinger, where in front of the Tsaritsa he received his electro-delusion as a symbol of his power. At this point he realised the patriotism that he felt, and he swore to devote his life to serving the Tsaritsa. Now a full-fledged Harbinger, Tartaglia doesn't get along too well with his colleagues. He stands out from the bunch by preferring to be front and centre in battle, and he's always seeking out combat. The other Harbingers prefer to be much more scheming and behind the scenes, and they try to conceal themselves from public appearance as much as possible. However, Childe frequently goes out to public events, not concerned with hiding his true identity. Because of his brash nature, the other Harbingers managed to get him sent far off to Liyue so that they didn't have to be with him. However, his devotion to the Tsaritsa is so great that he would fulfill any task given to him, such as the plan to revive Asile. He was reluctant to do this at first due to the potentially very high death count of innocent civilians, yet nevertheless he carried it out. However, it turned out that this was all planned to fail as part of a much bigger plot that he wasn't aware of, so it all turned out alright in the end. So that's an in-depth summary of the backstory of Tartaglia, or Childe, or Ajax, or whatever you want to call him now. Admittedly, most of this information comes from his story information in the character menu, but I did also use other sources to get his full backstory. Besides, not everyone has Tartaglia, and even if they do, they may not think to check his story, even if they have the max friendship level with him. So I briefly summed up all of his background lore into this video. But yeah, I think that's about it, so have a good one.